Let's kick things off for the listeners and the viewers with episode 4 of House of the Dragon, brought to you exclusively by Naughty America, because this was borderline just porn.
This was you had to click a couple
Everybody
times.
was.
I got a lot of
Everybody was fucking.
pop-ups during the middle of this episode. It was weird. A lot of pop-ups during the middle of this episode.
Prince Daemon returns from his conquests with a haircut and a crown of
Still isn't attractive, but
thorns. He looked like a ghost.
I will say a lot of girls like him in general.
That's fine.
I do not find him attractive in this sequence of things. But
it's just the color of the hair. But he was in a couple of the shots. He was so white, like his hair, his skin tone, his clothing. He looked ghostly, and I don't know if that was on purpose.
His raping of young girls.
I mean, it seemed consensual.
It did.
So he's back and he honors his brother, such as it is. And then he and Rhaenyra have a conversation about how he thinks that she should be free of everything. And so then he takes her on a jaunt around the city that winds up in a pleasure house where they were seen coupling, as it were. And then he backed off and then she went home back to the castle and got things going with Sir Christian, whatever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while that was happening, the king was getting his freak on with Alicent.
Yeah.
And then Lord Hightower's spies informed him, and he informed the king. And then she made the agreement that she would marry the sea snake's son for political purposes. Daemon was exiled yet again. And the hand lost his job. So it wasn't a super action-packed or eventful episode, but there was a lot of sex.
And so
not as much candy.
I'm not sure that I will actually say I think we may agree. I did not like this episode. This did nothing. Okay, so it did nothing for me plot-wise. It felt just kind of like I am not approved. It was just dirty. It just did nothing. It was like I want to take a shower after this episode and not like cold shower, but like I need to cleanse myself because it felt filthy and gross.
Yes,
and
it did feel that way. Yeah.
And it's like she's 12.
Well, no, she's 18 now.
Or she's 18 now. That's right.
She's 4 weeks ago. She was 14.
Yeah,
but
that's right. So she's
the way the show
young.
Progresses in time.
The way the show is like, I feel like throughout the time. Either way, it was very gross to me, all this. And like, also, there wasn't killing of things enough. Like, there should have been like. Any. Yeah, right. And, well, just killing of my, like, want to, like, continue the show for a little bit because I was like, this is too much of that. And it's like, even Game of Thrones, when they have an episode like this, at least there would be like one scene where someone's head gets cut off. And you're like, sick. And this was just too much, like you said, like
it was excessive.
I got a little bit of a Pornhub account and I did not pay for it and I did not want it. And I was just like kind of checked out. I'm like, okay, this is now the episode. They're just like, let's just make it gross with this young girl and her uncle.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. Honestly, like I don't think the story progressed. I don't think there was any progression. I feel it was like, we're make it gross because we need to make it gross, and George R. Martin's like sitting in the corner beating off to it, and they're just like, okay, because that's just like what I think he does and to these shows. I'm sorry to go that direction, but like that's what I literally thought about this. Is like this is something George R. R. Martin loves, but like I hate it and did nothing for me. It like was nothing for me of a show. I could have not had this. Like if I missed this and we went to the next episode, I don't think I missed anything in progression.
Only time will tell in that regard, but this did feel the sex was excessive. I understand this is an HBO show, and part of the hallmark of HBO shows is, you know, sex, like extreme amounts of sex, right? But this felt over the top. I didn't dislike this episode per se. It wasn't the strongest episode of the show by far. It was probably the weakest.
All right.
But it felt like, to me, it was more of the same, like, political intrigue versus out and out violence. I mean, there's, you know, a lot of these moves are being made for political reasons. Even Daemon deflowering her per se. I mean, we don't necessarily know if there was,
right.
You know, but we do know that eventually there was with Sir Kristen. That's,
I know Jeffrey Epstein really is sad to miss this episode. I know he was
maybe a bit much. But even that was a political move, because now it presents her as being damaged goods, right? So even that is a political move. And I do think that moving forward, and it was interesting to see the Hand kind of lose his position, because I actually even went into this episode thinking, wow, he's like he's quite a strong character. And it feels like that King Hand relationship is going to last over time. Whereas the Hand in Game of Thrones, there was a new one every half season, basically. So that was a bit interesting. But this was a slow episode. It felt very much like what I would maybe call like a connecting episode, where it connects what happened before to what comes next. Whereas I don't think necessarily the events of this particular episode will be that memorable or important. It's just kind of moving from one place to another. And we kind of see that in some of the previews where Lord Corlys is back with, you know, his son to be betrothed. And there seems to be quite a bit of violence in the next episode. So that will be something to,
I think the next episode will be good.
Yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily think that this episode was bad. It was just weaker than the other episodes to this point. And that's going to not every episode is going to be a master, 10 out of 10. But
right.
I was looking through at some of the things that people asked regarding House of the Dragon, and one of them, and we'll actually talk about this too with the Rings of Power. Do you think it's necessary to have seen Game of Thrones to appreciate this show?
No, I don't.
No, I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree. There's bits and pieces, and there's maybe like nods, forward or backwards, but it does take place within the same world 200 years earlier. I don't think that you need to have that information immediately on deck to appreciate this.
No, I don't think so. I think for me, it's just like, if you never watched Game, it'd be weird. Although the thing I will say, it'd be weird if you watched this show without ever watching Game of Thrones. It's just like if this is your introduction to that. That's kind of a odd move, but it's just a different move. But if you are, cool. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. As this goes on, maybe a little bit, if there's more connecting pieces, but as of right now, I don't think that you need to have really seen that series to fully appreciate this one. So,
great.
But yeah, looking forward to to the next episode here in just a few days.
For me, I think they just did this to get this kind of episode out of the way, because the preview for the next episode looks awesome and I'm like stoked. Yeah. This was just too much. It was too much of like nothing for me happening, and I think that the political stuff I get, but once again, it was just like someone's head needs to be cut off, and it never happened. So that's what I want from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I felt like it was over the top. It was excessive. It was unnecessary. How much, but they were painting the picture such as it is. She has the freedom to choose, and Alicent, for example, who's now the queen, as she's being used basically by the king. I mean, she's a prisoner, and I think that was really what they were trying to paint that picture in this episode, is that the freedom to choose who your partner is a big deal in this world,
right,
for the women, because they have essentially no other power. And so she's been given, Rhaenyra's been given this power to choose, but then ultimately still will, quote, do her duty for the crown by marrying the House Valerian son. I think that's
Valerian son.
That's a proper match.
I think so. I agree.
Yeah. We'll see how it pans out, though. Yeah.
We will.
We will indeed.